Live from Ann Arbor, Michigan on WAAM Talk Radio 1600 and on the World Wide Web, this is Veterans Radio.
And good evening. We're here on Veterans Radio at WAAM 1600 Talk Radio. I'm Gary Lilly. Glad to be with you this evening. And here in the booth is Dale Throneberry.
Good evening, and welcome to November.
The old helicopter pilot there. We also have back in the booth Alan Black working the controls and Ingrid Weber, who does everything.
That's about right. That's about right. If you have a project, you tell Ingrid we have a project, and she'll take care of it. And she comes
back with 15 results for every time you ask for one. This evening's show is going to be about JAGs. You've seen the TV show. Now we're going to find out, is that the way it is? And with us tonight, we'll be talking to in a few minutes are Captain David Machado and Captain Russell Brown, both active reservists, both members of the Judge Advocate General's Corps. And right now, though, I believe we're going to go to. We're
going to do our news first.
We're going to do our news first.
And we've got Mark Linkey's on the line waiting for some activities that are going to be going on Veterans Day, which is next Saturday. And just a reminder, everybody out there, that next Sunday is going to be our third anniversary show. And if you can believe, we've been on the air for 3 years. But it is our third anniversary program, and we're going to be doing kind of a sound-off type of program here in the studio. And so we're going to encourage everybody out there to listen. If you have a favorite program or you've got a comment, send us an email. Go to our website, www.veteransradio.net, and hit the contact button and send us a notification of what you'd like to hear us talk about, or if you'd like to participate. Let's give you the number. In fact, the number that you can reach us at this evening is 734-822-1600. A couple of news events. I'm sorry, I just had to do a little quick promo there.
Thank you for bailing me out right there. My mind went blank.
That's all right.
CBs weren't expected to think.
It's nice being the young one in the room. As far as the hosts are concerned. That's why I'm looking for my stuff, too.
You're a kid at 58, 59? How old are you?
I hit the big 6-0 a couple of months ago.
Ooh,
so
I'm 6-0 again.
And they're overgoing here. That'll never happen. Speaking of 6-0, but coming up with Veterans Day, there is one announcement I wanted to make, and this is from Walmart, and this is something that someone sent to me just the other day, and I wasn't even aware of it. But Walmart, around Veterans Day, actually starting in October through Veterans Day, has a wall of honor in every one of the Walmart stores around the country, and I'm guessing around the world. And if you are a veteran or you know a family member and you can take a picture into Walmart, they will make a copy of it and put it on their wall of honor. And in addition, they will make up a package through the courtesy of Kodak that will give you a copy of 5x7, sounds like a school package, 1 5x7, 1 3x5, and 2 wallet-sized prints at Walmart. And I think this is great. And, and for those of us whose pictures are, in black and white tintypes, Gary, they can scan it for you. You've heard of scanning. You've heard of scanning. And they can, they'll make a nice clean copy for you. In fact, they can even doctor it up so you look normal, and they'll put it on the wall. I think that's a great honor that Walmart is doing, and I would encourage people to shop at Walmart.
We should all thank Mr. Photoshop for being able to doctor up photographs.
Yes, Photoshop is an amazing thing. That's just one of the things that's going on. And on our line right now is Mark Linkey from the Washtenaw County Veterans Services Office. Mark, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Oh, good evening to you.
We're kind of going fast because we're trying to pull things. You had a message that you want to deliver.
Very quickly, I wanted to, first of all, let me congratulate you as you approach your third-year anniversary. That's quite an accomplishment, and we certainly appreciate all that you and everybody there has done to promote veterans within this area. We thank you for that.
Thank you.
This week, in fact, starting today, is National Veterans Awareness Week. And in Washtenaw County, we had a Board of Commissioners proclamation signed on November 1st to that effect. November 5th through November 11th is National Veterans Awareness Week. And towards that end, if I could real quickly just point out two activities that are going to go on in this area. On November 10th, at 11 o'clock, there's going to be a Veterans Day observance and program over at the VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System. As I say, at 11, in the circular drive, there'll be a flag-raising ceremony, and then that's going to be immediately followed by a program in the auditorium, which I believe is going to include a speech or a presentation by the State Director of Homeland Security. That's on November 10th.
Okay, so that's Friday.
That's on Friday, correct.
Right.
On the actual day, Veterans Day, September 11th, at Great Lakes National Cemetery, they will have their observance at 11 o'clock. And I probably would be, what I'll do is, so you can put this on your website, is I'll send you a list of all of the other activities that are going on.
Okay.
But I would just briefly mention that if somebody wanted some more information on Great Lakes National Cemetery or how to get there, directions, there's an 800 number. It's 866-348-8603.
One more time.
The number for Great Lakes National Cemetery, 866-348-8603. And that service will be held at 11 o'clock on the 11th hour of the 11th day. I'm sorry, the 11th month.
Right.
Mark,
Yep.
Gary Lilly here.
Yeah, Gary.
Hey.
Youngster, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the flag raising at the U of M DIAG by the ROTC?
I can just comment on that. It's going to be at around 8 o'clock on November 10th. That's Friday. That's the same day as the service at the VA hospital. And that's in conjunction with the Tri-Service ROTC programs over at the University of Michigan. They've done this the last couple of years, and it's a nice ceremony, so I would encourage individuals to come on out and show their support. There's a big promotion going on through the Department of Veterans Affairs to wear your medals on not only Veterans Day, but other holidays as well. So we'll continue to promote that aspect of it, but it's just an attempt to show your pride and your support. And again, there's a flag-raising ceremony in the at the DIAG on the University of Michigan campus Friday, November 10th, and that's at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Good deal.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Sure.
Thanks very much, Mark.
You bet. And as I say, I'll get this information to you so you can post it as well.
All right, we'll do that as soon as we can. Thanks.
Good work.
Dale, on that flag raising at the U of M DIAG, they're asking for a lot of veterans to show up because there's an ugly rumor of a protest at that event. So all of you veterans out there, show up at 8 a.m. at the U of M DIAG and support the ROTC with their flag raising ceremony.
Okay. Each week on Veterans Radio, we like to welcome home servicemen and women who have been stationed around the world in the service of our country. And this week we've got a long list. It's really great. As soon as I can find it all here.
There's a lot of them coming back. Pretty pleased about that.
Yes. All right. Let's see, we got members of the 3rd Battalion, 378th Regiment, 2nd Brigade, 95th Division of the Army Reserve in Oklahoma received a Welcome Home Warrior Citizen Award for heroism in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom last Sunday. 27 members of the 160th Engineering Company of the Delaware National Guard are home after a 13-month tour of duty. 155 troops of the 163rd Field Artillery of the Indiana National Guard returned home last week. What else have we got? 300 soldiers from the 3rd Heavy Brigade Combat Team have returned to Fort Carson, Colorado. This is their second deployment. Welcome home, boys and girls. 27 members of the 153rd Field Artillery Brigade of the Arizona National Guard returned home last Wednesday. 100 soldiers of the 113th unit not named. When you send us these emails, you got to tell us what the units really are, have returned to Iowa after a 16-month deployment to Iraq. And let's see, finally, this is nice to get a long list like this. Makes
you feel good.
This is great. 122 troop contingent of the 8th rotation of the New Zealand Provincial Reconstruction Team returned home to, Waganui after spending 6 months building police stations in Afghanistan. And 150 members of the 101st Battalion, 68th Armored Regiment returned to a rousing welcome at Fort Carson, Colorado last weekend after serving a year in Iraq. And we just missed this party. If only we'd known. The Afoul, Illinois VFW Post 805 had a welcome home party for their troops and their families with a chicken and beer dance. I don't know how they do that one, but anyway, it's nice to see.
I hope so,
and I hope that a lot of people will do those welcome homes for these troops more as we go along. Great to get all these people home.
And welcome back to Veterans Radio. This evening we're going to be talking about the Judge Advocate General Corps, and we have two JAGs here, but technically you guys aren't JAGs, you're Jazz, but it would make a lousy name for a TV show, so they call you guys JAGs, right? Captain David Machado and Captain Russell Brown, welcome both of you.
Thank you very much.
David, what exactly is the Judge Advocate General's Corps?
Well, basically, simply stated, the Judge Advocate General's Corps are the fine men and women who serve our troops' legal needs. The Judge Advocates, as we are called, and the reason why it's JAG is because there's a Judge Advocate General. And there's only one of those, and the rest of us are just Judge Advocates. And basically, our main mission is to make sure that all the legal needs of our service members are taken care of. And we are just half the picture. The other half are the paralegals that we don't hear a lot about, and we need to give them a lot of credit, because without them, we would not be able to do our jobs. And that's
sounds like a regular law firm, then.
It really is. It's the largest law firm in the world.
Mm-hmm. Russell, how old is the service, and who started it?
Well, it was actually started by General Washington at the time when the Continental Army was started back in 1775. I believe, if memory serves me right, it was the Second Force. He set up the infantry, and then he created the Quartermaster's Corps and created the JAG Corps at the same time to assist him with running of the Revolution War. And we've been around ever since then.
You guys are there to prosecute and to defend military people that run afoul of our rules and regulations. Is that not correct?
It depends on your duty. The JAG Corps, as you mentioned before about being like a big law office, if you imagine us being different departments, there are people within the JAG Corps that work for the Trial Defense Services, which are the defense attorneys for soldiers that get themselves run afoul of the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. There are also the prosecutors, the traditional Few Good Men movie with Tom Cruise.
What did you think of that?
It was a good movie.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. It was a good movie.
Okay.
I don't know how accurate it was, but it was a good movie. They look great. They look a lot better in uniform than we all do.
Isn't that the World War II movies? I never saw a dirty soldier or one that needed a shave.
Absolutely. But in addition to having the prosecutors and the defense attorneys on the criminal side of the house, you have a large group of attorneys that handle the Army's business, whether it's procurement and handling contract and business matters for the Army, or whether it's handling
international law,
handling issues of the law of war.
Right.
Everywhere where you have major commands and the such, you have commanders that are advised, and they have a right-hand man or woman right next to them that is an attorney to advise them on anything and everything. And then you have a separate group which sits outside of this whole circle, which is the legal assistance folks, which Captain Machado and myself have worked together in the past, which are the legal assistance people, which he referred to earlier, that are there to assist troops with their needs.
What happens when a member of our military, Captain Machado, runs afoul of the law in a foreign country? I mean, some of those laws are pretty strict.
Well, one of the things that we make sure that we adhere to, of course, is the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and there are articles that cover very specific events, and there are articles that cover our catch-all phrases, such as things that wouldn't typically be in the books, some things that we don't necessarily have dealt with in the past, or things like that. We try to mold them under certain catch-all provisions within the UCMJ. There are many different things. We have Article 15s in the Navy. We call them Captain's Mast. There are different types of courts-martial, where the penalties are different, and depending on the different degrees of severity. And
what about the other countries' laws? If somebody gets tried, I was talking to a JAG one time who said that he was over in Turkey, I believe, and sometimes one of our troops will get caught with drugs. And it's very severe sentences over there. He said they're really like a dungeon where they're being held, and the only thing he could do was go there once a month and visit them. What happens? Who defends them? Do they get help from the JAGs?
Well, basically, a lot of times, what we need to look at is we have, before we go into a country, generally, we have somebody that goes in from the State Department, generally, that will negotiate what are called SOFAs, Status of Forces Agreements, and we make sure that we're following those agreements, and we've said ahead of time what will happen in cases like that. Who's going to prosecute? A lot of times, most of the time, I should say, we're going to prosecute our soldiers under the Uniform Code of Military Justice because we know that it is a fair system and that everybody is going to be treated equally, as opposed to letting somebody get tried under a foreign court, which we don't know necessarily that will be the fairest of treatments.
But going back to the point that you just made, Gary, that's not always the case. There may be portions of that agreement where we have agreed to allow the local tribunals or the local courts to hold the troop responsible for their actions under that country's laws.
That's correct.
Or, for instance, we may, for political reasons, also have a troop held responsible, such as the troop, forgive me, I can't remember exactly when it was, but here in the last few years, where we had the troop, as I remember correctly, commit rape over in Japan, wasn't it Okinawa?
Okinawa.
That we turned him over to the local tribunals in Japan, in Okinawa, to be held responsible instead of handling it under the UCMJ.
I remember a 1950s book and movie, A Town Without Pity, about 4 soldiers that were charged with rape over in Germany, and they were tried by civilian courts. Let's get off the subject a little bit. I'm going to ask you about the conviction and death sentence of Saddam Hussein today. Do either of you have a comment to make on that?
Officially? TJAG, our boss, hasn't given us the authority to make any official comments whatsoever, so we can't speak on behalf of the Judge Advocate General's Corps. But personally, myself, I can't say that I'm surprised by it, and I'm pleased to see it.
Do you think it'll be dragged out like death sentences in this country?
My experience from having been over in the Middle East is that justice is swift, quick, and very definitive, and right or wrong, that is their system. And I understand that there is an appeal process in place. I'm not sure of the procedures of it, but that appeal will be quick, and unless they find a reason to suspend the sentence or set it aside, I suspect the death penalty will be carried out within that timeline.
Go ahead.
One of the things that, the first thing that Russ said in this is that our boss TJAG hasn't given us authority to do that. For those of you who don't know, we have so many acronyms in the military. TJAG actually means the Judge Advocate General. That is the highest of the highest when it comes to JAGs, and that's our boss.
That's the boss, it sounds like. I like that.
I think he's the only general that I know of that his acronym actually includes the word the. It is me. I am him. The buck stops here. And
the Navy has a Judge Advocate General and not a Judge Advocate Admiral, right?
Technically.
That is correct.
Okay. So every now and then they do those things just to screw you up, I think. What are the big problems in Iraq? We've got a couple of minutes before we go to break. You've been in Iraq, Russell. What are the big legal issues over? Oh, no, I know what I wanted to ask. I forgot to. In World War II, as we moved through Europe, didn't we drop off a JAG and a crew at every town to set up a government, like in Germany? Are you aware of that through your history?
I'm aware of it through history. I can't say for a fact whether or not it was done in every town, but I know at least regionally there were JAGs there to assist. I'm sure General MacArthur had likewise in Japan had the assistance of a vast legal team, as well as rebuilding Germany.
Even though you're both on active duty, can you comment on whether or not we did a good enough job of that over in Iraq, or should we have done more of it, or was any of it done?
Well, I can't say personally. I've not been to Iraq, but as we all know, we're still there, and I'm sure the job is still being done. And I know we're doing the best we can, and hats off to our troops. So as far as that's concerned,
how many JAGs do you think we have over in Iraq and Afghanistan?
I'm not sure the exact figure off the top of my head. There are only, about 1,500 of us total,
yes.
service-wide, and so I think the largest percentage of us right now is over in Iraq, and I think the last figures I heard were somewhere in the figure of about 150 of us.
Gosh almighty, they could take half the attorneys in Ann Arbor, and that'll cause them to surrender.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the largest portion of us is over there. I believe that's accurate.
Are there enough?
Pardon?
Are there enough?
Are there enough? Oh, I'm the wrong person to say. I don't have enough rank. I'm just one of the worker bees.
Right. The troops over there, they're under a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's legal issues and there's staying alive issues. We'll think about that for a bit, and we'll get back to that right after the break.
Okay.
The Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat given a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. There have been over 3,400 recipients of the nation's highest award. This is one of them. Marine PFC Gary Martini gave his life to save the lives of two of his comrades. Details after this. The Marines in Martini's platoon assaulted across an open rice paddy near Binh Son, Vietnam. They were within 20 meters of the enemy trench line when they were suddenly struck by hand grenades, intense small arms, automatic weapons, and mortar fire. The enemy onslaught killed 14 and wounded 18 Marines, pinning the remainder of the platoon down behind a low paddy dike. Martini immediately crawled over the dike to a forward open area within 15 meters of the enemy position, where continuously exposed to the hostile fire, he hurled hand grenades, killing several of the enemy. Crawling back through the intense fire, he rejoined his platoon, which had moved to the relative safety of a trench line. From this position, he observed several of his wounded comrades lying helpless in the fire-swept paddy. Although he knew that one man had been killed attempting to assist the wounded, Martini raced through the open area and dragged a comrade back to a friendly position. In spite of a serious wound received during his first daring rescue, he again braved the unrelenting fury of the enemy fire to aid another companion lying wounded only 20 meters in front of the enemy trench line. As he reached the fallen Marine, he received a mortal wound, but disregarding his own condition, he began to drag the Marine toward his platoon's position. Observing men from his unit attempting to leave the security of their position to aid him, he called to them to remain under cover, and through a final supreme effort, moved his injured comrade to where he could be pulled to safety before Martini fell, succumbing to his wounds. The Medal of Honor series is a production of Veterans Radio.
And we're back, and please do thank our sponsors. Keep Veterans Radio on the air. Captain Russell Brown, I asked you about the problems that our troops have in Iraq. Do we really need a legal opinion to return fire? What are the standards over there?
Well, legal standards are defined, combat standards are defined in our rules of engagement, or what is known as our ROEs. And what happens is frequently when you're in combat, no, a troop who's engaged can respond. However, sometimes there are issues. There's a legal theory known as proportionality, that you don't use a sledgehammer when you're dealing with a mosquito or a small problem. This may sound odd when you're talking about war, but modern war nowadays, the United States has tried to approach the concept of war with morals and with ethics and in mind, and again, those sound like they would be at odds, and they are
mutually exclusive terms.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. But there was an example, a case in the first invasion where the troops were fired on by a hotel, and the other side claimed that they weren't. Do you have any insight as to what happened there?
Well, in that particular situation, as I remember, if you'll remember, it was a situation where as the troops were advancing into Baghdad, the press corps was located in a hotel in downtown Baghdad, and I can't remember what hotel it was, but there was a sniper in one of the upstairs suites who had opened fire and was shooting at an advancing column. And because of the position he was in, he was able to injure, harm, kill multiple troops from what I was aware of. And in turn, when the United States returned fire, they returned fire with not only heavy machine gun fire and that, but they returned fire with more, with rockets, tank, heavy equipment, armor, etc. And a very prestigious or a very well-known name in the international news corps for CNN, she came out and caused quite a fervor over this as being inappropriate action. But however, at that exact point in time, going back to that theory of proportionality that I was talking about, the judge advocate who was there at the time, said, open fire. Go ahead. You're being fired upon. And in this split-second decision, not only did they have to make the decision as to whether or not they may kill civilians in shooting at the hotel, but they also had to consider the lives of all the soldiers coming behind this armored column that may be hit by this sniper.
So proportionality can be determined by which end of the barrel you're on? And
most definitely.
Okay. What other... we've got a couple of issues I know that you guys can or can't talk about, but Captain Machado, you've been down to Gitmo.
Yes, I have. Great experience. I learned a great deal. We got to do some great work. I guess we can speak in generalities because the work that I did has not yet been unclassified. But I guess what I can tell you is that we have, our troops down there are doing a great job, and I guess don't believe everything you hear on the radio and on the news when it comes to what our troops are and are not doing with reference to the detainees. There are, for example, just as an example, there is a several page, and I want to say it's 9 or 12 pages, I cannot remember exactly, but there's a 9 or 12 page standard operating procedure when it comes to handling the Quran alone. Okay, the United States government has gone to a great deal of effort to make sure that we do not, and when I say we, I mean our troops, that the detainees are not mistreated, that the detainees have an extra special standard of care, so as to avoid many of the issues that we hear, in the news at times. And we, for the most part, as far as I know and have personal knowledge of, these standard operating procedures are followed. And if they're not, well, everyone in this room's been in the military, and we know what happens when we don't follow what we're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the civilians probably don't have any idea at all about that, but how disciplined the military is. As an example, even in a war, everybody has their own job descriptions. And I would get asked all the time, did you see any combat? And I'll say, yeah, I saw it, but I didn't participate. You kind of look over at your shoulders, you're driving nails. But it's very organized, and everybody has a very specific job to do, and there are lots of regulations. I see by those thick books in front of you. Yes, Russell.
Well, on that very point, it's one of the things that most people think about is we talk about war crimes. I mean, just talking about the most traditional idea of what a JAG does and war crimes tribunals. And there's this old trick question of how many American soldiers have ever been tried by a war crimes tribunal, Miley, or any of the other situations where American soldiers have been involved in atrocities. And the reality of the matter is the answer is zero. The reason why is it goes back to exactly what you're saying about the standards that we have. We prosecute and try our own under the UCMJ. When something goes wrong, the military steps in, deals with the matter quickly and efficiently as they can under the given legal system, and resolves it. And that way, our own troops aren't tried in front of The Hague, or they aren't paraded out in front of other countries as being monsters, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and one of the things that Russ was talking about just a little while ago, when he talked about rules of engagement, every soldier almost on a daily basis receives rules of engagement briefings and, what they are and what they are not allowed to do when it comes to aggression and things like that. And I don't want to sit here and sound like, the two of us sound like poster children for the military. But, the bottom line is we do have standards and we follow these standards. And, to the best of our knowledge, these things are, soldiers make mistakes, people make mistakes. But the bottom line is we have the system. And as you noted, I've got this pretty heavy book in front of me. And, I've got the manual for courts martial in front of me. And we've got at least 300 pages in front of us where, that's why the system is there, so that we make sure that these kinds of things don't happen.
We do have a very disciplined military, and the point that you make is a good one. One of the issues with the POWs in Vietnam was that they wanted to hold them back and put them on Nuremberg-type war crime trials, and that our government did not stand for that, and we did get them back after the war dragged on a little longer to negotiate that one out. But bad things happen in war. And quite often back here in the States, you'll hear somebody saying, well, he committed this crime, but you have to look at his environment. Is there any kind of a worse environment than a war when you're scared to death, most of the time for months on end, and then violent things happen? I can't think of a worse environment that caused people to snap.
I couldn't possibly work with anything.
My only comment on that is that even though you are in a war zone, that you still have certain internal decision-making process that you go through. And that if you unfortunately come across, if you're being fired on, you fire back. It's just that. But you also take into consideration what is around you, what your environment is. And, the people that have run into problems over there are probably the same guys that would have run into problems here had they not been in the military.
There you go.
And because, you've got 140,000 troops over there, and, how many, what percentage of them have done these alleged atrocities out there, and so I think that's something that we also have to look at. If some guy has gone into a house where the house was not on the list to be searched and all this other stuff and does something, then he's going to go to trial. And being in the military, as all four of us have been, we know that sometimes that the military reacts faster than a civilian court will react. And even on some what we would have considered some Article 15s that were handed out many years ago and probably still today that were for very trivial things, but they happen, and they happen fast, and they don't mess around. I don't think that the Uniform Code of Military Justice was, and I don't think it has changed any, but it's a powerful document that really does control our civilized behavior.
Thanks, Dale. We're going to be going to a break right now, and when we come back, I want to ask about a couple of specific issues, the old war stories type things. And we're going to a break, and you are on Veterans Radio. And we're back on Veterans Radio. Captain Machado, you had some things that you wanted to talk about as a follow-up to the last subject?
Yeah, basically what, one of the things I wanted to comment on is we talk about the environment of war, which personally I've not been in the environment, and I hope that, I never have to experience that, but in my job it's a possibility that we're going to do that kind of thing. But what we need to realize and look at that a lot of people don't take into account is we've got kids out there. Mm-hmm. These soldiers, our brave men and women, the average soldier is, between 18 and 25 years old. And, most people at 18 and 25 years old are going to school, going to college parties and things like that, and don't have any idea what these guys and gals are doing out there. And they are really working hard for us, and they really deserve more credit than they get on a regular basis.
Well said.
We have the people with the highest character, in my opinion, are the people that we have serving in our military. And I got to tell you, I've lived in this town for 40 years, but the veterans that I know are the ones that really stand up there above all else. Russ, you were in Iraq, and what was your position over there? And is there anything you can or want to talk about?
I spent time doing legal assistance, assisting troops in need with their civil matters and matters that they had going on back home, as well as some of the criminal matters that they had going on in theater. I wasn't a defense attorney handling, but I was there for some guidance if they needed it. I spent time doing procurement and rebuilding Iraq, on some of those big projects that I've had talked about earlier, doing the business of the government, doing the business of the Army, buying things and fixing things that we broke and the such.
Are we making a lot of progress there, or are we making any progress?
I believe we're making progress. The most important thing, and I have to say that, having seen it in the Army Times, seen it personally, seen the things that are over there, absolutely we're making progress. I remind people that, especially here from Ann Arbor and Detroit, how long did it take us? How many decades did it take us to get 696 completed across Detroit? I mean, literally, the freeway started before the Cold War started and wasn't completed until after the Cold War was ended. And there are a lot of people that seem to think we have to have Iraq rebuilt from an infrastructure overnight. That's just not physically possible, and it's not realistic.
Our media is not realistic. I heard a comment after Katrina. It's been 45 days, and it's still not rebuilt.
That's just not even. That's not even a responsible comment.
No, it isn't. That was an area larger than Great Britain that was devastated.
But in the area of I've made the comment before that I think the American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines have become the ultimate human rights workers. If you take a look at the people that didn't have the right, the women that didn't have the right to vote, the little girls that didn't have a right to an education, the people that didn't have the right to own businesses or the such over there prior to, Saddam Hussein was in power, and look at the women that are now seeking education, little girls going back to school, women getting out to vote. Forgive me for sounding emotional. One of my favorite pictures is a picture that was run in the Army Times of a woman making the peace sign, and what she was showing off was her fingers with the ink on, showing that she had voted. This was probably the first time in her life she had ever had the concept of voting and being involved.
And we're having an election this coming Tuesday. What do you think the turnout will be in this country compared to the turnout in Iraq?
Tremendously disappointing.
Yes, it will be. The troops over there, you said that they're 18 to 25, same ages as over in Vietnam. Are they being held to too high a standards? I've heard some horror stories like getting busted for accidentally discharging a round while cleaning a weapon, things of that nature.
I think that they're General Order Number 1 and a lot of the various different orders that we have that we work with are very high standards. The professionalism that a soldier has to keep at all times, 24 hours a day, makes it a difficult environment. Do I think it's too high of a standard? It's not my place to comment. I'm not the person who makes the policies or the decisions. But I do think that they are very high standards, and a lot of troops do keep them and are able to keep them well. I have also seen, and I know of a lot of troops who have had their careers ruined for doing very, very small infractions that in the civilian world people wouldn't even notice them happening. And
that's something, again, that civilians just don't understand about the military. You saved this till last. Do you want to talk about your particular experience over there, Russ?
I don't know how much I'm at the liberty to discuss. I mean, there is clearly we have lost troops in combat over there. I forget. Dave, do you know what the last count is from the JAG Corps?
The JAG Corps?
From the JAG Corps with troops. I mean, as Captain Machado mentioned earlier, we've lost one of the things that we in the JAG Corps have never had to deal with, to the best of my knowledge, prior to this engagement, is the loss of our own in combat. Our job has changed drastically as war has changed, as the dynamic of war has changed, and we're out in the front lines just like everybody else is. We have lost paralegals, we have lost attorneys.
And we almost lost you.
Well, I don't know about that, but
you were in a Humvee that was hit by an IED.
We had all kinds of there was all kinds of damage that was done. I don't know about that, but we had guys that were hurt pretty bad.
Dave.
Whoops, I'm sorry. Did I just hear a click or something there?
Nope, we're still on. We've got 5 minutes to go yet.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's going on right now is you're thinking back to those times, and it's very hard to concentrate when you've got a little slideshow going through your mind.
Yeah, you have to excuse me. Like I said, I do know of troops that were injured. I do know of troops that were killed. I do know of troops. We had very senior people within the JAG Corps who I have had the privilege and honor of working with and having met that were over in Iraq prior to when I was there, that were had a helicopter that was hit by a rocket that killed them. And as I said towards the beginning of this, the JAG Corps is actually a very small family. And there are not a lot of attorneys. There are not a lot of paralegals or warrant officers that run our offices for us. And you get to know each other very well.
What caused you to join?
In my case, I actually came back. I used to be in the aviation world, and I had gotten out after Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and I actually came back into the military for the simple reason, and I don't mean to sound cliche, but this is the honest to God's truth. I came back because I missed my colleagues. I missed the camaraderie. I missed the esprit de corps.
There's nothing like it. You get close. How about you, David?
Well, I was a former Navy guy. I was in the Navy for 3.5 years, and decided that it was time for me to become a JAG. And at the time, I didn't want to do JAG active duty, and the Navy didn't have it as a reserve option when you first started. So I switched over to the Army, and I've been happy ever since, because now I don't care who wins or loses the Army-Navy game.
You'll sit on both sides.
That's right. But
did you get your law degree before the military, or either of you?
You're required to. There are very few people who get the privilege of having the Army pay for their law school, the FLEP program, the funded legal education program. The rest of us, unfortunately, have to pay for law school on our own, and we have to become licensed attorneys before we get the privilege and honor of serving.
I had one quick question, and we're kind of running out of time here. But did any of the Code of Military Justice and the changes that were made in the proposed changes in how we reacted to the Geneva Convention, as far as prisoners were concerned, does that affect you, either one of you?
Well, I think it affects all of us. The law of war and the Geneva Conventions have always been very reactionary. It's it's almost unfortunate, but we react to things that have happened in the past, and that is how that is how the law of war really has come about. So I mean, you find that eventually things change and they progress with the things that have happened. So I think it really affects all of us.
Are other countries on? Do they have their version of the Judge Advocate General service?
I think the more industrialized nations that have been our allies for continual, Australia, Great Britain, Germany, most of Europe, etc. I don't know about some of the other lesser developed nations in Africa or the such.
What about the Geneva Convention? How old is that?
1954.
Well,
yeah, the Geneva Convention was 1949.
It was the first one.
Was the first.
It was the wounded and sick, and then we had
multiple.
Right. Okay. But back to your question, when I was.
We need to wrap it up here. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to have you guys back.
Oh, okay.
That's obvious to look over these issues some more times.
One of the things I'd like to say.
We've got 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, we are available for veterans under certain circumstances, and all retirees are entitled to the services of the JAG Corps. Look us up. We'll be happy to help you out.
And that'll do it for Veterans Radio this week. Dale?
I think that's about it. So I think you can just give your close. We want to thank our sponsors. Tune in next week for our 3rd anniversary party.
And you are dismissed. Ball out.